Good evening and welcome to the Board of Commissioners special meeting for the purposes of adopting the 2025 budget. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Brodsky, Rothman, DePlacido,
Here.
Laney Martin,
Here.
Brown, Weingrab,
Here.
Henry, Zepone,
Here.
Younggarts,
Here.
Spiegelman,
Here.
Bowl, Schreiber,
Here.
Bowman,
Here.
Vice President Vehy,
Here.
President Hecker.
Here. Thank you. We will open it up for public comments on the agenda item this evening, which is the 2025 budget. If anyone wishes to make a comment about the budget, please come forward. And you'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Okay, I'm Adele Cubell, and I live in Abington. First of all, you've not answered any questions about the budget up to this point, and it's the final meeting. No questions have been answered. I realize that Mrs. Lehman has contacted you with multiple questions. She studies the budget in depth.
You have questions about the budget yourself?
She has not gotten any answers. Let me
No.
speak. I get 3 minutes. You're interrupting. I want to start over.
If you have questions about the budget, you may speak to those.
I am.
So, no, you're not.
We want
You're-
all
you're-
budget questions answered because everybody's question is
The
my
budget
question
questions
as
have
well.
been answered.
Okay? Their questions are my questions. I want every question answered in a democracy. That's the way this works. Not here, though. And I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Hecker. I am the only person, except for this gentleman, who is here tonight, and I do not come for influence. I do not come to develop lucrative relationships with rich people. I do not gain economic opportunity by coming here. I come here because I'm concerned about where I live and the decrepit conditions you've allowed to creep in. First of all, the priority of the budget is, again, assisting billionaire developers and wealthy speculators. Why is tax money and $19 million in COVID money being used to further the plans of speculators and billionaires?
It's not true.
That are actively creating economic inequality here. The area has multitudes of unaffordable apartments. Last month, I spoke with citizen renters living in apartments with mold, mice, rats, and even drugs. Not one commissioner demonstrated any concern or asked me where these citizens were living. Instead, most of you stay involved with your computers, your telephones, or whatever you bring with you. Why are developers given VIP status while renters that utilize the citizen portal to write about their living conditions were never answered? They're absolutely ignored. Billionaire developers are on the public dole here. The Jenkintown Connection Project, neighborhood sidewalk installation, infrastructure work, traffic calming studies, all sorts of signage, physically separate bike lanes, all of this is to assist wealthy developers grow wealthier. Why is $19 million in COVID funding not being utilized to build the years-delayed Roslyn Library improvement? Why is the Crestmont Community Building that was built with tax money charging rental fees? A computer lab or senior citizen center would be much more appropriate. This situation has upset many people for years. Abington has a rising senior population that needs services. Why are commissioners completely ignoring dangerous streets and sidewalks? Old York Road and other areas need bollards, which are safety poles to be installed to protect pedestrians that are more and more waiting for the bus into late night. There's nothing to protect pedestrians. They are like sitting ducks waiting for the bus, and you know it at this point, and you're doing nothing. You don't want to spend any money on citizens.
All right, Ms. Cubell, please conclude your comments. Your time has expired.
Why is the Rubicon fence around the playground broken and falling down?
Okay.
It separates kids from the train tracks. I've reported it. It's been ignored.
Ms. Cubell, your time has expired. Thank you for your comments.
All right. Why is Abington operating as a dictatorship instead of a democratic government?
Thank you for your comments. Please take your seat. Does anyone else wish to make comments about the budget?
My picture, but my paperwork, but I can't get it because of all this stuff.
He'll get it for you. Not a problem.
Thank you so much.
Hi, it's Joe Rooney. I live in Ardsley. Thanks for having this. I talked at the last meeting just about the shocking increase in crime, so I just had a few questions about the police part of the budget. So first, and I didn't find it, but I'm not an expert, and I'm just asking, in the revenue side on the police budget, is there federal and state funds that are listed somewhere else? Because I didn't see those reflected at all. And, or is it zero on an annual basis? The next one is the contracted police service. It's $676,000 plus. I know there's a couple police officers at the school district, and I was wondering if that's all there is, or is it somewhere else also for the contracted stuff? The fines and forfeitures says 210 grand. Is that a target, or is that something like historical? So last year or the year before, it's been roughly $200,000. And then the animal control, it says, I think it was on manpower, I forgot to write it down. It says 70,573. Is that a full-time person? Is that some part-time hours among several officers? That was all I had.
Okay, we'll get you answers to those questions.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn to Zoom.
Laura Lehman.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook. So first of all, Mr. Hecker, it is not your place to interrupt citizens' comments and tell them what they should and shouldn't be commenting. It's your job to hear them and to allow them free speech. That's number one. Number two, it's not appropriate to have just 3 minutes for the budget. That's completely inappropriate, and you know that. I've already sent you to the Open Records site so you can see it for yourself. So this kind of nonsense has to stop. It is an abuse of our rights. So again, the first meeting was moved up a month, and momentarily I thought, oh goodness, they heard us and they gave us more time for the budget. That wasn't the case because you moved the final approval up a month as well. So we had the same short period, and in the same short period, you again did not allow the documents to be distributed per our policy correctly by law in Abington. They are to be distributed 24 hours after you get them, which is a week before the meeting. And that is not happening, and that is tragic, because that takes an entire month away from us. And apparently Mr. Manfredi is considering public comment, whatever comment he gets behind the scenes, only to himself and to you. And that's not public comment. Public comment is comment that is heard by the public and shared with the public. So the questions that I asked, almost largely, except for a very couple of them, were not answered. And it is stunning to see, for instance, the hidden costs for the school inspections and permits that I believe is illegal for you to be paying. It is not to be in our budget. You had to hire more people in order to do that. We had a $120 million school with lots of budget, with lots of inspections and permits that were complicated. And I don't believe it's legal for you to even pay for those. So when I asked where that is in the budget, the answer was, let me see if I can find it here. The answer was, inspection and permit receipts are noted in the appropriate code budget line. I asked again where that was in the budget. No answer. No answer. 90% of the time I got no answer back. And this is from a manager and a finance director who say, just ask us the questions. We'll be glad to answer them all. So this is not okay. The construction services, so first of all, I would like you to get back to me and let me know how legal that is for you to be doing the school permits and inspections on the township taxpayer dime. And the construction services project where Mr. Manfredi bragged that he only spent $400 on Jenkintown connections, yes, that's if you discount all of the salaries and benefits and bonuses and overtime and everything else that our employees put in.
All right, Ms. Lehman, please conclude your comments. You're over time.
That's only 3 minutes. That's not appropriate, Mr.
It's almost 4, and if you have
It's-
any final comments, please make them now.
That's not appropriate, Mr. Hecker. That's not appropriate. The EDC project is over $1 million already, and we don't have a single thing that has been shown that we are going to actually accomplish with that. Now, $1 million, $600,000 is in this budget, and despite asking multiple times, I could not get a breakdown on what that was for, including the possibility of Mr. Manfredi's own salary as CEO.
Okay.
So-
Thank you, Ms. Lehman. We appreciate your comments. With that, I will turn this over to Manager Manfredi.
Thank you, President Hecker. As you know, the budget has been adopted, duly adopted at a public meeting and advertised as proposed, and it is in front of you this evening to be adopted as the annual budget. There have been no changes to any line items or dollars since the proposed budget adoption, but we would like to make clear to everyone, as you know, the American Rescue Plan Act has certain provisions that we have to, and we had set aside in excess of $2 million for culture and recreation projects. Working through this so that it is clear what the dollars are that make up the $12,316,687.73 that's available in ARPA spending. And we have the $10 million for revenue replacement standard allowance, which we've addressed. And then there are other dollars that will be going to the inclusive playground, playing field enhancements, pavilions and seating areas, walking trails, and the consulting fees for Widow Bryant. The presentation Ms. McIlvaine will be putting on will go through all these projects so that everyone knows and understands what is being appropriated from that remaining $2 million. It's actually $2,316,687.73. And as a follow-up to that, and again, Ms. McIlvaine will touch on this as well, we will also have to take these dollars, put them into memorandums of agreement, also, for example, with second alarmers, a beneficiary agreement, and most will be incorporated into a resolution. That will be the written documents that will allow us to comply with the Treasury. That's the overview. Ms. McIlvaine, in her presentation, is going to get into some more specifics.
Good evening, Ms. McIlvaine.
Good evening. Feedback. Okay. All right, good evening. So as Mr. Manfredi mentioned, I apologize for my voice, so if I don't sound loud enough, please let me know. I will try to be louder. But as Mr. Manfredi mentioned, as part of this budget, there are ARPA dollars that will be allocated, and there are necessary steps that will need to take place this month in order to meet our requirements. And so this just speaks to that obligation. This was presented as part of the budget, so this is going to look familiar, but I just wanted to put it back on the screen to reiterate what the expectations are. Again, this is also from the budget presentation. This is the use of the revenue replacement. We're going to take the standard allowance of $10 million, and here it describes what that looks like. So as of October 31st, 24, we have available funding in the amount of $12,316,687.73. What this represents is the funding that was not dedicated to specific projects that was encompassed as part of this budget before you for 2025, as well as funding for other projects that have been completed, but maybe not, they did not spend that full obligation, and we need to re-obligate that funding. So here we're seeing the breakout of the proposed obligation. Mr. Manfredi spoke to the revenue replacement and standard allowance of the $10 million, inclusive playground and park, the playing field enhancements, pavilions and seating areas, walking trails, and with O'Brien's. And I'm going to briefly touch on each of these topics for you tonight. But what this budget is proposing is these specific projects and those allocation amounts. So again, this is included in the budget, but the standard allowance of $10 million, that will be reallocated to the line items of reserve for culture, recreation, parks, and infrastructure investment in the amount of $9.4 million, and then for economic development in the amount of $600,000. So this are new breakouts, which I'm going to speak to tonight. So for the inclusive park, we've heard a lot about the inclusive park, and we're excited to get that underway. As you know, when the inclusive park contract was accepted, we had an outstanding RACP application. We heard back on November 1st that RACP application was successful in the amount of $350,000, but we had applied for $550,000. So we'll need to allocate funds to make sure that we're meeting our contract obligations and that project can proceed. And so we are recommending the allocation of an additional $200,000 for those expenditures of what we're already under contract for. As we've been going back and forth on this project, Hold Trees, who is the fabricator of the treehouse, when they were doing their structural review of the treehouse, they've requested changes to the height and materials for snow loads. So as they got deeper into the design, they've put in a request to us for an additional $9,791 to accommodate some changes that would be needed for height, so making sure that it's appropriate for older adults or wheelchairs who may be elderly who may be going in there, as well as just snow loads due to Pennsylvania. They're recommending a 25 psi. So we're recommending an additional $209,791 to be allocated to the inclusive park, and we're excited to get that project moving forward, and it is moving forward. I know that's been brought up numerous times, and we're looking forward to groundbreaking on that soon. Playing field enhancements. So we've tried to align in our conversations, aligning with the Recreation Parks and Open Space Plan, as well as the strategic plan, and we kept hearing again and again recreation, and so you have all prioritized that. And in looking at how we're going to allocate that money, playing field enhancements is something that we've continuously heard about, specifically recommended in 4.5. And so we have approximate cost for field enhancements of $50,500 per field renovation. This allocation, that would get us about 27 fields renovated. This graphic on the side is just demonstrating the number of fields we have. So we have 40 permitted fields in the township. Those identified in blue have been identified in the RPOS plan as rated more poorly than some of the counterparts. So each of those locations have fields that are below, on a scale to 0 to 9, below 5. Oh, and I should note that those field renovations, that cost includes amenities. So we've heard complaints about benches, bleachers, fencing that can be addressed with that funding. Pavilions and seating areas is another request that we've received, and it is also within the RPOS plan and strategic plan. Pavilions estimated cost is about $55,000, and with an additional allocation of $440,000, that would allow for approximately 8 pavilions, seating areas, chairs, things of that nature. And on the right-hand side, we have some potential locations for those pavilions or areas that would benefit from additional tables and seating areas. Trail enhancements is something that we've also heard a lot about. That was recommended throughout the Recreation Parks and Open Space Plan. We are recommending an allocation of $253,396.73 to trail enhancements. This could be for both new trails and existing. The recommendations were for us to evaluate opportunities to expand trails, as well as to make some ADA enhancements to our existing trails. We're approximating about $70 per linear foot, and that's going to be dictated by those locations identified. With O'Brien's, they have been our compliancy and support council throughout this since we've received the ARPA funds. We have an existing contract with them, but for the Treasury's purposes, we need to ensure that that goes out through 26. So we've been doing $25,000 a year. We haven't always hit $25,000 a year, but it just gets kind of put back into that pot that you're seeing now. So we're recommending $50,000. That would be for their services in 25 and 26, which will be incredibly important because they help us make sure we're being compliant and not having to return any of that money. So those are the list of projects. As I mentioned, and as was stated within the budget, we have to obligate these funds by 12/31/24. And obligate is not met by the Treasury's means by just you adopting the budget. So there are additional actions we need to take, and those actions will be before you at the November 14th Board of Commissioners meeting and are listed here. So as you know, we have an existing agreement. This was approved within the 2024 budget for Second Alarmers Rescue Squad. We will be revising our beneficiary agreement so that it's clear it's 24 to 26, and that'll meet our obligation for that funding, inclusive park and playground, as I spoke to. That'll be the accepting of that change order, as well as just the additional $200,000 to our existing contract, if you so choose. The O'Brien's contract amendment to expend that through 26. Revenue replacement will require both a resolution and a memorandum of agreement with the finance department. And then with the recreational projects that I spoke to, there'll be resolution, and then that will indicate those MOAs, which will need to be executed on with the department responsible. I would like to note here, you see the new projects italicized. Manor Woods is an existing project that's been approved, I believe, since 23 and in 24. We're still working on that project, and so we'll just need a memorandum of agreement with Parks and Rec to continue that work. It is not part of that additional funding that I spoke to because it's already been obligated. So with that, that's it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Any questions from board members for Ashley before she sits down? No? Thank you for that, Ashley. Much appreciated. Richard, do you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, very briefly, the terminology she uses in what we use every day, just want to make sure everyone understands that it's not additional dollars. That it is additional dollars, the $9,700 and the $200,000 are now available. What we are doing is taking from, there's a line item budget, so this is really a distribution. We're showing how this money is going to be spent in line items within those numbers. So you're not going to see additional numbers. Those line items in the budget are not changing. Just want to make that clear. Okay. That these are how the allocations are occurring to the projects based on the park, recreation, and open space. And again, of this more than $12 million, it's virtually all going to culture, parks, and recreation.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Commissioner Bowman?
I think it all looks great. I was glad to hear the presentation, and hopefully it's the beginning of more. And loved reading all the recommendations.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowman.
President Hecker, there is one more thing. Just want to make sure everyone's aware.
Certainly.
With the passage of the budget, we are going to immediately begin moving forward with the projects that were identified in the Park, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, meaning that we will start having requests for proposals prepared, and I'll be meeting with department directors and all the appropriate professional staff, unless you would prefer I do not do that.
No, I think that's fine. Thank you. Commissioner Weingrad.
Thank you. Still, under ARPA, even though you're going to get the RFPs, when does the money have to be spent by? So we'll do the memorandum, the contracts now, but still, everything will be in line for it to be fully allocated and spent by 2026.
Yeah, we have to obligate it by the end of this year, and then we have 2 years to spend it.
Okay.
And those obligations will be on the agenda on the 14th.
Any other questions? Okay. So we have one item of new business, and for that, I will turn to Board Vice President Matt Vahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to enact, it's BOC-01-110724. I move to enact the ordinance number 2220, fixing the tax rate, levies, and adopting the annual budget of the Township of Abington for fiscal year 2025 and appropriations.
Second.
And it's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions about the 2025 budget before we take a vote? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.